All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined from New Jersey via Florida by Timothy Smith, who is the founder and CEO of Aurora Private Wealth Inc. How are you doing, Tim?
Doing great, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Tim is a passionate advocate for financial literacy, ethical investing, and he co-hosts the Financial Dad podcast with his daughters, translating complex topics into practical, actionable advice. And you're also a vocal leader in the fight against investment advisor fraud, sharing tools and strategies to help others avoid mistakes he's seen firsthand. As we're going to talk about today is protecting your success, what every entrepreneur needs to know about financial fraud. First of all, Tim, tell me a little bit about your 40-year journey and why and how you came to this area as one that's you're particularly passionate about, protecting entrepreneurs from financial fraud.
Yeah, sure. Well, I started in financial planning in 1985 as just a frontline financial planner. I became a manager in that company after a few years, then a partner, and then after 10 years, I left and started my own investment advisory firm. A few years later, I started a broker-dealer for some friends who wanted to join me. And those two platforms became a business over time that uh, currently has about 100 advisors in 35 states around the United States. So it's, nice little business.
Yeah.
Along the way, unfortunately, to answer your second question, I've had to deal with several instances where someone was defrauded by an investment advisor, some under my company, some not. And there are certain things that occur over and over, and as a result of that, I became passionate about informing people of what they can do to protect themselves from that. From that in particular, I mean, there are multiple potential frauds, cyber fraud and others, but the investment advisor fraud is the key one that I focus on.
Yeah, and tell me explain a little bit about what shape that takes. What is investor fraud?
It generally involves an investment advisor of some kind, whether they're actually a real investment advisor or just someone who's suggesting investments to people who isn't registered with a company in any way, et cetera. The basis of it is that they get you to give money to them either knowingly or unknowingly, and they use that money for other purposes. In a classic Ponzi scheme style, it might be to pay off earlier investors or interest to earlier investors. It might just be to buy houses and cars and things for themselves, thinking they'll somehow put the money back someday, I suppose. But it often involves fake statements of values that are not real, are not audited, don't have a basis in actual account values somewhere and securities held in those accounts. So, if your money is at a Schwab or a Fidelity or, a Merrill Lynch, UBS, one of the large companies, you have little to fear from an advisor stealing the money while it sits there on the platform, because there are a lot of controls in place to avoid that. Where it becomes problematic is when the advisor says, you know what, John, I have a great idea. I'm going to create a little micro cap stock fund where I pick small companies or seed, local companies in San Diego, let's say,
right,
with high interest loans or investments in equity in the companies. So let's take $100,000 of your money and let's put it into my fund. And, I can guarantee you at least 10% yields and, probably higher over time, and maybe returns, even better returns on equity positions we take, that kind of thing. So there's always a good story, right?
right.
There's typically above market potential returns, either promised or implied, right?
Hmm.
And because there's trust established, and or the advisor, quote unquote, is persistent, persuasive, the victim in this case may lack the assertiveness
Hmm.
or the ability to do due diligence to determine whether or not this thing is a fraud, uh, just doesn't know better otherwise. You
Right.
know, so they say, sure, they take $100,000 out from UBS or wherever, and the advisor puts it into an account somewhere that is not in the client's name, that
Right. Right.
isn't,
Right.
right? So that's sort of how this stuff happens. And then the advisor sends some kind of statements periodically that purport to show that money is there when it in fact is not there.
It's not there. Yeah.
And that's a pretty common way that people are defrauded by some sort of an investment advisor.
Yeah. So how should, in order to protect themselves, how should business owners and entrepreneurs, how should they select? What's the process for selecting a good investment advisor?
Well, one of the first things to do, look for a referral from somebody
Mhm.
who's happy, or who knows the person's character in general. I would tell them there is a system. You can go to brokercheck.finra.org, and you can see if the person has had any past problems in the industry. If they're not, first of all, if they're not there, then they are not regulated. They have no regulator overseeing them.
Mhm.
So if you don't find them there at all, that's a huge, huge red flag. This is not a person who's really in the industry. If
Right.
they present themselves as being in the industry, it would be quite a problem. Um, you can also look to see what sort of information is there if the person is listed there. So, for example, a person with 7 complaints by customers that the person did unauthorized trades or
Mhm.
put them into unsuitable investments or overly risky investments or something like that. That suggests the person has trouble matching the client's desires and risk
Right.
tolerance for some reason. Um, and there could be a character problem there. So that's a red flag and a reason, really, from my standpoint,
Mhm.
not to use a
Right.
particular advisor. I wouldn't take an advisor like that on, generally speaking.
Mhm.
Um, so you can do those kinds of background checks on a person and find that that system is the primary way to determine whether or not an individual has had trouble fitting into the regulatory framework that
Mhm.
investment professionals are supposed to be within.
Yeah. And so if you suspect or fraud has taken place or you suspect it, what steps should you take in order to minimize the damage and maybe hopefully maybe even recover some of it?
Yeah. So several steps. Number one, contact your local police.
Mm.
It's very simple. I literally uncovered a fraud, and my first action was to call the police in Champaign, Illinois,
Right.
where we had a particular advisor that we were pretty sure had taken some client money illegally.
Yeah. Can I just stop you
And the
there?
police,
Just stop you there for a second because no, I just want to underline that because that wouldn't instinctively be probably most people's first, when they because the financial fraud or something like that, they wouldn't immediately say, "Oh, I should pick up the phone to the police."
oh, well, if the person's, if you're sure it's fraud, yes, call the police. If you're not, and if the person is with a financial services company,
Hmm.
every email, every piece of literature, every business card is required to give a phone number that you can call to reach what's called a supervisory office.
Mm.
So, someone in that office, if you call and say, I have a problem with an account with an advisor, I want to speak to a supervisor, they will put you on the phone with either the person who supervises the person at issue, or someone even higher up. and you can go through with that person what you think the issue is or why you suspect there's a problem. And I'll just give you an example. The vast majority of financial services firms would not approve Tim Smith creating the Tim Smith microcap fund
Right.
and taking possession of customer funds, taking
Mhm.
control of customer funds as a result. Um, and every such activity has to be reported and approved by an investment advisory firm or a broker dealer firm before you engage in it. And so it shouldn't be happening in the first place. And if you call such a supervisor, you should expect surprise.
Right. Right.
Well, I'm quite sure that he does not have permission to do what you're talking about him doing. So let me take all the facts down and we will start an investigation of it.
Mhm.
Um,
So
now,
part of it, Tim, I think, am I correct, is not to be intimidated, not to be in, because sometimes people think, well, what do I know about it? You're that guy's the investment, professional. I mean, I think sometimes people lack the confidence to, even when they get a gut feeling that things aren't right, they lack the confidence to do what you're just talking about.
yeah, well, you know what? Call a lawyer, call a friend, call an
Mhm.
accountant, call someone who might have a better understanding of how these things should work and explain the fact pattern to them. And they would probably be in a position to help you start unraveling what's going on.
Yeah. And am I correct that you're in the middle of writing a book? Are you?
I am 50 ways to avoid investment advisor fraud.
No, there you go. Exactly. And when is that coming out?
Hopefully this fall, probably
Mm,
this fall.
mm,
John, I can tell you though, there's I will give you the page 90 version. Okay,
right.
uh, never take your money off the platform, off of the Schwab,
Mhm,
Fidelity, etc. platform. Just don't do it.
mhm,
99% of the audience listening to something like this, if you're an ultra high net worth person who is looking at investing in small companies as a part of a private equity type of
mhm.
approach with a portion of your wealth, you should already have a serious due diligence process before you engage in
Yeah.
anything. And one critical element of due diligence is, does whatever you're putting money into, is there a CPA firm, an independent CPA firm that audits this company?
Mm,
And if so, let me see the audits. Let's find out what's been going on. That may, in and of itself, not be enough to stop a fraud from happening. One of the frauds that I dealt with was where the CEO of a company that a person who had been affiliated with my firm had gone again outside of our aegis and
right.
had recommended to friends and clients that they invest in the stock of that company. Um, and she didn't tell them that she was getting compensated, nor did she tell them that she had already invested.
Mm,
And that part of her motivation for raising more money was that she didn't want to lose her investment because the company was in financial trouble.
right, right, right.
So the CEO of the company had been funneling money out the back door as it was being shoveled in the front door by people like this young lady.
Mhm,
And as a result of that, even what appears to be a legitimate business can turn out to be having fraud occurring. And that gets into what are the financial controls? Who has
mhm,
access to large amounts of money? Typically, what you want to see is at least two people internally have to sign off on any amount leaving the company coffers, something like anything over $10,000, let's say,
mhm,
um, as a control against fraud of that kind. So those are the kinds of questions that you'd want to ask in a due diligence process. And but just going back to my
yeah,
earlier example, just giving all of the control of money over to one guy, even though you know him and you trust him, is just imprudent.
Mm.
and it just raises too much of a risk of fraud. It may not turn out to be fraud, but it sure is risky for fraud
Yeah.
to do
How
that.
much, and how much is technology impacting all of this now? Particularly, the fraud risks that have increased with the leveraging of more technology. Do you see technology as an issue?
Well, investment advisor fraud, a little less so.
Hmm.
Certainly, fraud by, you know, the Russian mafia or third parties, people in India trying to get people to scamming them for money by phone or by email. That kind of fraud um, is on the rise as technology is adopted by more and more people, especially those who don't have any training in what fraud looks like.
Mm.
Like an email with a link in it looks like it's coming from Microsoft, let's say.
Yep.
You click on the link and it downloads a Trojan horse to your computer or a key tracker, and now somebody is watching everything you do on your computer. And the next time you go to your bank account
Yep.
and you go online and key in your password and user ID, that person has the ability to capture that information. So technology has made it easier for criminals to do some things, number one. Number two, the explosion of things like artificial intelligence, it's not that it's made it easier to defraud people, but it's made it easier to create a compelling story about why you should invest in something that turns out to be fraudulent. Oh, I've started a company in the
Mm.
artificial intelligence space. It's going to be $1 billion company in 5 years. You want to get in on the ground floor,
Right.
invest now with me, put 100 or $500,000 into this. Um, and it's really easy to just say later on, I'm so sorry it didn't work out.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
spent
Yeah.
the money and your money's gone and we've gone bankrupt and it's all over. Um, that's a relatively easy fraud to commit. And if somebody doesn't dig deeper, looking for audited company financials that bear that out, or if there are no audited company financials, again, you shouldn't have been in it in the first place. But
Mm.
um,
So
that's the kind of thing that can happen.
yeah, obviously due diligence is really important. But I think, how would you advise somebody to do their due diligence? Would you get them to get somebody from outside, or what would you advise somebody to do? Especially because oftentimes people are really busy, they want to focus on other areas, they just want to, and let's face it, they want to believe what you're telling them.
Yeah. So, this is a big part of what family offices are about, right?
Mhm.
Due diligence and the like. Uh, for the ultra high net worth people. For the average person, I would say, have a lawyer and an accountant look
Mhm.
at whatever it is. They will better understand what is being portrayed in the information you're being provided. They'll know better what to ask for to
Mhm.
start with. You do have to be careful of um, sort of failure bias, if we could call that.
Right.
That the accountant, the attorney, if this thing, goes belly up, if it was legitimate but goes belly up,
Yes.
they don't want to be the one who said, yeah, go ahead and invest in this, right?
Mhm.
So they tend to be more conservative, even if you're not advising the person to get into it. Even if you're just saying, I see no signs of fraud, even if that's what the professional is telling you, they still have liability potentially if there
Mhm.
is fraud. So they're still going to be very, very conservative if they'll agree to do it at all.
Right.
But in companies like mine, there are people that are due diligence experts. They spend their time reading materials and looking into background, and we literally have done Google Earth searches to make sure that buildings that someone said
You're right. That
to
actually
invest
exists.
in physically existed,
Mhm.
and pulling title searches to see if the ownership of the building is indeed the people that they say it is.
Mhm.
So those kinds of steps, a typical layperson just simply wouldn't think of,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. But what you have to do is you have to assume that never assume that what you're being told is true.
Hmm.
Verify each single point that is critical to your analysis of what you're deciding to invest in. Because if any of them turn up as a red flag, turn up to be inaccurate, fake, wrong, whatever, it's just a good reason not to go forward whatsoever with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Tim, this has been fascinating. So much fantastic information. All of Tim's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people what you and Aurora Private Wealth do.
Yeah, so Aurora Private Wealth works with mass affluent to ultra high net worth investors on financial planning and investment and insurance and estate planning and a variety of areas. Personally, I specialize in something called structured positions, which means I help create positions using bonds and options that mimic stock market movement, but with either less risk, more potential gain, or both, depending upon what the client's looking for. So it's a specialized area, and I work with high net worth people, ultra high net worth people, um, giving them giving them access to these kinds of possibilities for them.
Fantastic. Well, like I said, all of Tim's information and Aurora's information will be below this video. So thanks again, Tim. Thank you for watching and listening. Let's see you all again soon.